by giving away our own right not to be taxed. Yep, that's what we did, because we were promised by politicians and newspapers that it would only apply to citizens. God, are we on the same page? Where's Elizabeth Warren? Lizzie. Call her Lizzie. In 1913, America ratified the Sixth Amendment. Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on income from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states, without regard to any expenditure. I'm not going to take us back to legal reason, but here's the thing. This was the baseball bat that we used to fix the problem we should have solved. Instead of using congressional power to only what was absolutely necessary to tax the wealthy, you know, by limiting what it would apply to, or what type of income it applied to, or literally anything, we gave Congress the power to tax any and all income in whatever form they wanted to, remove all the constitutional safeguards that we had against overtaxation of our most vulnerable. I wish I was making this up. I wish this was a great tip. Or it was a great tip. How did we let this happen? The reason why 40% of your paycheck comes out before you even have money is because we thought we were trying to tax billions. What's shocking about this is that somehow as Americans, remember the Patriot Act? We were so concerned about some old guy hiding in caves with an old Tommy AK-47 that we gave away our digital privacy rights to the federal government forever. Gave away. Patriot Act. If you don't agree with it, you're not a patriot. Now, just in case you don't believe me, I'm going to explain briefly what happened in a single generation after the passage. In October of 1913, Congress passed the first real modern. And as promised, it was a modest tax increase, a 1% tax on income of 1,000, progressively rising to a 7% tax on income of 500. Adjusted for today's dollars, this 1% threshold would have applied to incomes of $90,000 for individuals or $150,000 for married people. And the average industrial worker made $800 a year, which was far below the average. So the federal government estimated that it would only apply to the richest 2 to 3% of Americans. And overall, the country largely celebrated. The House Ways and Means Committee said this: we encourage citizens to cheerfully support and sustain this, the fairest and cheapest of all taxes. The New York Herald said this: we have observed the emergence of the young man who overstates his income in order to be among those who are obliged to pay an income tax. They also further predicted that many $12 and $20 a week clerks will be receiving an income tax receipt from the school of his favorite lunch spot to show his value and standing in commercial business. I want to throw it. As the U.S. became involved in World War I, this somewhat seemingly sweeping amendment that was only supposed to apply to billionaires began to change. It was never intended. With no additional language to safeguard the manner in which the 60% was applied to income, things changed quickly. By 1918, the top margin was changed by over a quarter of magnitude, from 7% in 1913 to 77% in 1918. Now you might say, great, this was a tax billionaires, exactly that, and we just had more money to pay for it. But what really happened is that this fundamentally changed the federal revenue, relying on tariffs and excise taxes, to now being reliant on income. As a result, on the source of federal revenue, the federal government went about solving the Great Depression in a manner that was totally different than how they went about solving problems after the Civil War. Instead of development like it did with limited tools prior to the Gilded Age, this time the federal government solved the Great Depression New Deal. That's the financial expansion of the federal government and federal programs. And it also implemented Social Security. And in order to pay for Social Security, another federal safety net program, it had to implement an additional called the payroll. The payroll tax began as a combined 2% tax on employees and employers, is now a 15% tax. And we can all be really glad it paid off because Social Security is going to hit its first round of insolvency in about 8 years. And then came World War II, fundamentally transforming the form of the federal government, adding millions of low and middle-income Americans. In 1943, federal withholding of a paycheck. This allows the federal government to take money before it even gets to you to earn their own interest on it, and then to give you back what you overpaid the following April, all without interest. My opinion, ladies and gentlemen. By 1945, just 30-some years after the introduction of the first federal income tax was no longer a class tax on the wealthy. It was a mass tax paid by every single American worker. And today, the amount of federal revenue paid through income tax is like this. The line. The yellow line is, well, that's just payroll taxes, which is another form of income tax. And federal revenue collected by source now overall, I'm not political arguments about whether income tax is all good, all bad, somewhere in the middle. The main point I want to make is that it allows growth. And if you suppose the average American pays 1% tax on the wealth, this should be all the proof that show that governments will do or eventually try to do everything and anything that is within the power they have. They can do it in all circumstances. That's why, as a people, we need to be very wary of long-term, broad language being so very specific. Today, we often hear calls for a wealth tax, private law for wealth